Hello my vacuum cleaner chums, and how are you today? I thought have a different starting today to mimic our friend Sam Watson, how he always starts his videos if you notice. Hello my vacuum cleaner chums, and how are you today? Well, we're all fine, your vacuum cleaner chums. But anyway, how are you today? It's Steve here, and we're going to be doing another video today. Yes, yet another video. I'm doing rather a lot just lately. Now, from the title of the video, it's giving it away anyway, but we're going to be doing a machine today that hasn't actually featured on the channel before. Although I have featured one of these type of cleaners before, I haven't featured this particular one. What is it, you're wondering? Well, you already know anyway, so we might as well wheel it all in. Yes, it's the good old Dyson DC07. Now this has been in the loft for the last sort of 3 to 4 years, so I had to get it down today, and I had to give it a bit of a shining up because it had got a little bit dusty up there. Now this goes back to the days when I used to do these up and put new motors in them, refurbish them and then sell them on again. This was one of the cleaners I actually bought to refurbish, but I ended up keeping it myself, because this machine's actually a very early example of a DC07. The stock label on it unfortunately has dropped off. It was so dog-eared when I had it that I had to remove it anyway. But the information I got from it told me that it wasn't made in Malaysia. So anybody that knows anything about Dysons will know that in 2002 James Dyson shut up shop basically down here for production and shipped all his production off to the Far East. So that after 2002 all Dyson machines were made in Malaysia. Now most people know that anyway. Maybe you weren't sure of the exact date that Dyson transferred production all over to Malaysia. It was 2002. Now the DC01, the DC07, which this is, started out life in 2001, and it was meant to be the replacement for the DC04, but the DC04 ran on for a few years after this was introduced anyway. Now the earliest ones of these, the 2001 built ones, and presumably early 2002, were built at Malmesbury in this country, in the United Kingdom. So on the stock labels it would always say if it was made in Malaysia. Now the stock label on the bottom of this said that it wasn't. It just said Dyson PLC, Malmesbury, England. So I thought, well, this one's actually a very early example of a DC07, and it's called the Brush Control. And I don't think it was called the Brush Control on later models either. And this is actually the old-fashioned sort of plastic that's a different shade of grey to what the newer ones were. The newer ones were sort of a darker, more metallic-looking grey, but this is it's a very, very much lighter grey on here, and the plastic is pretty fragile, I will say. These are very, 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 they're like glass now. These are like very, very easily snapped. This one's in pretty much, it's in pretty much near perfect condition for its age. The only issue with this is that the motor is a little bit, it's a little bit on the worn side, and you can hear a bit of bearing noise in it. So I decided, well, I'm not going to bother putting another motor in this. I might as well keep it for the collection. I did sell the other Dyson that I had. I had a yellow one, which was the origin version. It was a late model. I did a video on that in 2014, and it's on the channel, very early on the channel, and that's one of the videos that's had the most views on my channel. That's had something like 30,000 views. So it's pretty obvious that people seem to like looking at DC07s or anything to do with Dysons. Now, I don't have very many Dysons, as I've said before, on my DC15 video that I did the other day. I did say that I've only got 4 Dysons now. I've got a DC03, this DC07, I've got a DC04 limited edition upstairs, the purple and pink one, or purple and magenta I think it's called, and I've got the DC15. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have a look at this DC07, and we're going to have a push round with it. I'll put the stuff down on the carpet in the usual fashion, and we will have a listen to Dyson's loudest ever vacuum cleaner, because this was, in my opinion, the noisiest one that he ever made. The 14 that came after it was a quieter machine. Even though it used the same YDK motor, it was still, this was the noisiest Dyson because of the noise that the root cyclone system at the top here made. Now, later Dyson DC07s were what we call derooted, because the early ones, they suffered from very, very sort of narrow, very small exits from the cyclones at the top here. And what was happening is that these were getting clogged up, and it was clogging all the cyclones up and causing issues. So Dyson, instead of having them ending right at the top here, started chopping the tops of the cyclones off and ending them slightly lower down so that the exits were bigger. But in turn that made it even noisier still, so you got even more of a roaring noise from the cyclone assembly when it was turned on. Later Dysons also had, they didn't have colour coordinating shrouds in the bottom here. They were pretty much all grey, the same as the rest of the casing. So all you had was a colour on the top here, but none in the bin. So I would refer to this as what we call a Dyson DC07 Mark 1. There wasn't a specific Mark 1, but I refer to these type as the Mark 1, and the Mark 2s were the later type with the different type of plastic and the derooted cyclone and the grey shroud inside here. So let's get the camera down and we'll go over it in closer detail. Okay, so I'm sure everybody's seen a Dyson DC07 before. They were as common as muck. They were all over eBay. You can buy one still now. They are going for about 50 quid, refurbished ones. They are an ageing machine now. They went out of production nearly 10 years ago. So, you know, they're all getting rather old now, and this one's the oldest you can get. So if it's a 2001 model, then it's going to be 16 years old, 15 years old at the most, or at the least, should I say. So the DC07, as we can see here, was a very sturdy machine, unlike the later offerings. The handle, you couldn't twist this much from side to side. The hose, like all of the Dysons, was built onto the back here, so that you had to take the wand off to get access to it. The cable is, I think it's 8 metre on this, maybe possibly a 10. It could be an 8, I think it's an 8. So if we unwrap the cable first, it doesn't take long to do on this because it's a very, very long distance between the two cable wraps. So on the back here we've got the, as I say, the cable wrap at the top, and then we've got the wand cap, which was a different design to the DC04. The DC04 used a sort of one that used to pull back, and it had a little spring inside, and that was for getting lost, so they'd always keep dropping off. This one used a slightly different system in that it just pushed back into the handle like this. They were very noisy when stood upright with that thing closed, because you could hear all the air rushing in through the top of here. Then we've got the tools, which are on this machine. They're colour coordinated to the rest of the machine. This being like a turquoise blue. The tools were also turquoise blue as well, which I actually quite like that, because the later ones all just had grey tools. They were pretty much standardised. I think Dyson was trying to cheapen things when he moved it to Malaysia, so he started using just the same colour plastic for all the tools. But the early ones I thought were very pretty. You know, they had all the colour matching tools, all in turquoise here, and the different colours had different colour tools. Like on the DC04, which that utilised different coloured tools as well. Some of them even had two-tone ones. Going down the back here, we've got the at the bottom of here we've got what we call the blockage ports, and everybody's seen the blockage ports before. Dyson always wanted to make sure that if it got clogged up, it was easy to unclog, so you were able to remove certain parts like this, so that you could get your fingers down in here or up there to remove blockages. And there was another one underneath here which was like the U-bend, and that would come off as well. I'm not going to take it off now because everybody's seen the way these come off. The front of the machine is, you can tell it's the early type because it says DC07 Brush Control on here. The later DC07s said DC07 just here. It was printed there in the middle rather than down here. I can't remember what it was called. I think it was called the All Floors model. Later on in life, this brush control got changed to All Floors, so that you could turn the brush roll off for use on hard floor or have it on for use on carpets. And it utilised a clutch to do that. This clutch first appeared on the DC03, it was carried on onto the DC04 and also onto the 07. The same design was used then on the DC14 and then on the DC33. And I think the DC27 used this as well. It just looks slightly different to this. But this basic shape of hood over the brush roll, the floor head, it was carried on for a very long time. You know, it ran up to about 2010. And then, you know, the ball machines then took over the DC40, the DC25, and you don't really get now any machines left with the standard wheels on. So underneath, if I just tip it back, we had the floor head here, and inside here is the helical brush roll. This brush roll was helical on machines with the clutch, and it was a solid round cylindrical brush roll on machines which didn't have a clutch. And I found that very strange, the way they decided to put a different brush roll in depending on whether it had a clutch or not. Now, a lot of these Dysons suffered from broken base plates on here. A lot of them cracked and a lot of them showed a lot of damage all along here because they were made of plastic, and they really did suffer, these sole plates. So a lot of the ones I had to refurb, I had to replace the sole plates on. But this one, I know it's a little bit dirty, but it's actually all intact. It's not split or it's not broken. It's even still got some of the side bristles left, and a lot of them, these all wore down to next to nothing as well. Underneath was where the stock label used to be, but as I say, that's now gone, it's missing. It was so tatty I just pulled it off. But as I say, it did allow me to know that this was an early model. Underneath here we've got what they call the internal hose. This hose is very, very prone to getting split and damaged. A lot of them I found were taped up with duct tape or gaffer tape or whatever have you, because they'd split. I think I replaced the one on this one. I don't think this is the original one for the machine. I think I put this one on as a replacement because I think this one was split. Now you can take the bottom off. Let me just get a screwdriver. We'll turn it over like so. We can take the bottom off quite easily to remove blockages on this by using a screwdriver to undo these 3 pins here, and then we just lift off the sole plate like so, and there we can see the brush roll in the housing there, and there's the belt there. Now, with a clutch machine, the belts were very, very difficult to replace when they got stretched, so consequently there's a lot of DC07s still floating around which don't agitate the carpet very well at all because the clutch belts had got stretched. It might still go round slightly, but it would stop very easily on carpet, and I've had to replace a few of these clutch belts myself. It's usually the one that goes between the motor spindle and the actual clutch is the one that stretches. This one here, the clutch to brush roll belt, usually I found that one was okay, and that's good as well because these are the belts that are the hardest ones to change. You've got to literally take the clutch entirely to pieces to get this belt off, whereas the other one you only need to take the end part of the clutch off to change the belt. So I did prefer, in terms of maintenance, the other type of DC07, which was the non-brush control or the non-clutched version, the Origin. And they basically had one belt that went from here straight up to the motor without the clutch, and you could change that relatively easily. But these ones, as I say, Dyson intended for you to replace the entire clutch at a cost of over 20 quid. And I think, you know, that was cheap on eBay as well, if you could find a clutch for 20 quid. So we can put the brush roll housing back on, and then we can do the clips back up as well. It was intended really for you to use a coin to be able to do that, to unblock it. Dyson intended for you to be able to service these without any tools. Pretty much the same as a Seabo you can service without any tools. This is how you take the bottom off, like that. Then you could go up in here to retrieve any clogs. You would often find things like pens and long items that got stuck in this in this U-bend here, and quite often that it would get clogged up. The things I used to find in these machines when I bought them off people and they didn't work and they were all clogged up. Some of them were in such a state and you wonder, you know, people just really don't look after vacuum cleaners at all. Okay, that's the base of the machine, and there's the wheels. So, you know, I used to enjoy taking these apart. I thought they were pretty good machines, to be honest. When you look at how complex the current models are, the DC40, the DC41, the Kinetic, I mean, they're so complex. I think, you know, with a regard for these people that refurbish cleaners, I think Dyson's trying to stop people doing it, because he was obviously losing sales of new machines because people kept buying these old ones as refurbished ones off eBay. So he's making his new machines so complex now, with parts not generally available for these newer machines, that people are put off refurbishing them because it costs so much to do it that they're never going to make the money back. So, well, you know, it's hard to say what the future is going to be for people that refurbish these things, because they're not going to be able to keep on selling the DC07 as a refurbished machine forever. Now, I'm just going to put it back up straight again. It's a bit tricky with the camera in my hand because it's literally all dropping apart on me. Right, now the hose has just dropped off the back. I got tangled up. So I'll just put the camera down here while we get it set back straight. How on earth's that come like that? So yeah, what you basically do with the hose, I don't know how much the camera can see here. Let's just put it back up on the top, and then I'll show you the hose. So basically, the hose was stored on site on the wand on the back of the machine. All you do really, basically, to get to the hose is you press that lever and you'd lift this off, and you'd slide your hose down, and then you could take the hose off by pressing the little button on it, and then you would push the cover back, and then you could slot the hose on top of the handle like that. And I always thought that, I've said this on a previous review of these, I thought that was a very good design. That was a really good design to have that like that, so you can effectively use the normal handle on the rod there. And on the earlier Dysons, they were made of metal, so they were really sturdy, and it gave it a really good spine, really good backbone down the back of the machine, which, in my opinion, the current machines, current models, they are too flimsy, and the cat's just running in. You can just see her dashing past. Obviously wants to go to a bowl. She doesn't make an appearance on many videos. She'll go on the windowsill now, and there she goes, up behind the curtain, hiding away. She's very shy, my cat. Yeah, so that was the hose. Oh, and the hose, you could put all the accessories on the end, so you could just put the dusting brush on the end of it, like so, or the upholstery tool. I will get the hose out on the demonstration. This is you can use the turbo brush here, because Dyson supplied these with some of the early machines, and it's a standard 32mm neck, so that would fit on the end of the hose like that. And I believe it was actually this style of turbo brush they supplied with these early Dysons if you wanted one. I think it came with the Animal, if I remember rightly. When you bought the Animal version, it came with one of these turbo brushes, because I did have a couple of Animals that I kept for refurb, and that's where I got these from, because the people that sold them to me gave me these with it. So let's sprinkle some stuff down on the floor, and we'll have a vacuum round with it. I shall just go and plug it in over here. There we go. Now it's very, very noisy, this machine, so when it comes on, you're going to need to turn your headphones down or turn your computers down, because I'm sure people know how loud these things are. I will just put the camera over here as well, because I think it does a better shot of the room when it's actually stood over here, like so. There we go. Put the cable to one side. Oh no, because we need to have the carpet shot, don't we, on the floor with the particles down, because we want to see if it agitates the carpet, don't we? Let's put all our rice down. The more heavy particles here, the gritty particles here. This is what we call bulgur wheat. It's like a very gritty sort of particle, very similar to couscous. And we're going to have the porridge oats down as well for the larger particles, because we'll put a good few of those down. Yeah, there we go. Let's have this down here on the carpet so we can see the action. There we go. Let's see how well it does then, shall we? Well, we can see there that it's picked it all up, but there wasn't any agitation going on. There was no dramatic bouncing up and down of the particles like we saw with the Kirby and a few others I've done. But there, nevertheless, it has done it. It has picked him up. So let's put him on from this angle, and we'll see it doing it again. Okay. And there we go. That's the DC07. Let's just put this a bit straighter. And it's picked up all the stuff I put down, picked it up really well. It pushes along nice and easily. The brush roll still goes round on the carpet, although you probably couldn't hear it. So that's the alarm. I'm pretty much out of time. I'll end this video here. Hope you enjoyed seeing it being pushed around. I'll see you next time.